Hey, all. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. Welcome aboard today, our politics edition on Tuesday, September 20th. Doug Pagitt here in Minneapolis, where I'll tell you, Rob, summer has held on for one last final little dish here on September 20th. But, you know, the leaves are shaken. They're going to fall to the ground and become, you know, the food for the grass in a matter of weeks. So sorry to break that to you, good people around here, unless you're people that like wearing sweaters. And that time is coming, but today's going to be.
I'm a person who likes wearing sweaters and can't do it yet because it's 95 degrees here in Arkansas. It is hot. It is miserable, and I'm just ready for summer to be over. It's supposed to break on Thursday, which is great. The problem is I won't be here because I will be in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you're just going to drive to that very cool area yourself.
Yeah,
you know, I think you should take it as an act of agency. You're like, I'm going to get in a vehicle, an airplane. I'm going to fly, and I'm going to start traveling around this country in the cool breezes of the Midwest to try to, bring an end to insurrections and Christian nationalism.
Absolutely.
Something, Rob, I never thought we'd have to travel the country and remind people of. Hey, insurrections are a bad thing. You don't support the insurrections and the insurrectionists. Hey, if you think faith, hope, and love matters, maybe you should, let that be your driving force for your own motivations for elections, and try to elect candidates that care about the common good. But hey, you had a big day around your house today.
Yeah, today's a big day. My daughter Whimsy, it is her 8th birthday. You know, she's our surprise baby. She's our oh no, what have we done baby? The one who reset the clock, and we don't do the math, and she's in 2nd grade now. We don't do the math on how old we'll be when she's graduating from high school or
10
college.
Years from now, so that's easy. Just throw 10 years on there, 14 years. I can do the math for you real quick here. 2032, 2036, you guys are going to be free of high school and college.
We could be free now. But instead, we've got another decade. Today's Whimsy's birthday, and
happy birthday, Whimsy!
Well,
as you know, because you have older children as well, hold on to it. We just did a celebration this weekend for our youngest son that got married. He'll be 29 in a week or so.
Vanessa saw a picture of you my wife Vanessa saw a picture of you, Doug, on the interweb at your son's wedding, wearing a suit, and the word she used to describe a picture of you in a suit was
stunning.
Televangelist.
Hey, I don't wear a lot of suits.
Right.
But last week I wore the same suit because I only have one. 3 times. Once at the White House on Tuesday. Once at the wedding on Saturday, and then I preached at a church on Sunday, and I couldn't quite get the vibe if they were formal or not. Their website was unclear. They were not as formal as the website implied, but I thought, when was the last time I wore a suit three times in 1 week? That was last week. This week, Rob, I'm not. I've got a Common Good immigration T-shirt on. I'm going to be wearing working clothes because we're loading up a trailer, getting ourselves together. We're heading off to Pittsburgh. I'm starting to drive today. We're going to hold an event in Pittsburgh with great congressional candidate Chris DeLuzio and a state Senate candidate there. If you care about democracy, you got to be caring about Pennsylvania right now. I know there's a lot of reasons people don't want to care about Pennsylvania, but if you care about democracy, Pennsylvania is an important place. So as it turns out, Rob, is Georgia. I mean, the fact that Herschel Walker, the poll I just saw this morning, Herschel Walker is leading. Herschel Walker is leading over Raphael Warnock. Raphael Warnock is the sitting senator. And the Republican, former running back for the Minnesota Vikings, and I guess for some college team. Herschel Walker is
Georgia.
Herschel Walker is leading among people that say they're going to vote. So I hope more people turn out to vote, that aren't saying so. And I just hope, that we don't have to deal with a Senate that is full of people who support the kinds of things that Herschel Walker. Look, as we like to say around here, every person is a beloved child of God, the hope of the world, the light of the world, and the salt of the earth. But not every salt of the earth should be the senator from Georgia, and Herschel Walker is one of them. It's just simply amazing. But so is the case with the governor's race in Arkansas, where we're going to be.
Well, listen,
the congressional race in Arkansas, and all over the country. We've got a lot of people that need to be doing a lot of things to make some good
can
things
I give you an
happen.
update on the could give you an update on the gubernatorial
Yes,
race here in
please.
Arkansas?
How we doing?
So, poll came out this weekend. Now, listen, we have to tell you where we started.
Okay.
Where we started was Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the mid 60s and Chris Jones in the mid 20s. That's where we started.
Where's it sitting?
Poll came out this weekend. Sarah Huckabee Sanders at 51%. Chris Jones at 40, still 11 points back, but significant movement. And when you factor in undecideds and margin of error, this thing's a dead heat. We are in this thing with 49 days to go. So, so that's right. We're going to be coming here to Arkansas doing a Vote Common Good event with Chris Jones, with Kelly Kraut and Lisa Parks, and some of our candidates for Common Good here in Arkansas, as we travel the country trying to make a difference in these elections. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close all over the country, and there's going to be races that are going to surprise people, and it's going to be much tighter in so many races around the country than people are anticipating. And I say that not to like, hey, let's take our foot off the gas. Everything's great. We're cruising now.
No, it's not.
No, we gotta push the pedal down and go hard the next 49 days, because it really does feel like the future of democracy, is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. People's rights are on the ballot. It's so important.
In politics, you spend two years making sure that the people who should vote for you and will vote for you know and turn out. The last 49 days is for those people who don't think about this stuff all the time. They're the people who tune in later in the season, and that is now 7 weeks out. There's still people who aren't paying attention. Like 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, people are going to start to pay attention. But this is that window. So if you worry that you've said too much on Facebook, you haven't said enough. If you worry that you haven't that you've communicated too many of your views to your friends, you have not yet communicated too many views to your friends. This is the time to move those people. And look, if 1,000 people move 1,000 people, you can get a huge difference. The number of races that have, in history, very famously been called by small margins are clear. But in recent years, it's just an increasing number of races that really have mattered. And a big reminder this week about the cruelty of Republicans when they get into power and they get into office. There was a saying that in the Trump administration that the cruelty was the point, especially around the treatment of immigrants, asylum seekers, and families that were coming. They wanted to send a very harsh message so that people wouldn't come. So the phrase, the cruelty was the point, is something that they, were very comfortable with overall in the Trump administration, but was very much about their border policy and their immigration policy. Well, we've been reminded of that again, and we've been reminded how important elections are, because Ron DeSantis was elected governor by a very small margin in Florida in 2018. 2016. We've ended up with this terrible circumstance around the world where he spent Florida taxpayer money to fly migrants who he said came into the country illegally, not even in his state, went and got people from another state and flew them to a third state just to make a point, just to say, hey, all the rest of you should all have to deal with these migrants, these horrible migrants that have shown up in the state of Texas. You should have to deal with them. Now, Rob, I am ready to go off on this thing, because I will tell you, we traveled that border. You were there. I rode a bicycle the entire length of the U.S.-Mexico border and then all the way over to Florida. And by the way, Rick DeSantis, no one has crossed illegally from Mexico into Florida. There is no border with Florida and Mexico. So your idea that like illegal border crossings are really messing up Florida. Yeah, I think you got enough work to do, just sticking in your own state. But here's the thing, Rob. People don't stay in the states that they've crossed into. People aren't coming into the United States simply because they want to be in California or Arizona or New Mexico or Texas, the states that border Mexico. They've crossed from, multiple countries, coming from Venezuela or coming from Nicaragua or coming from El Salvador. They've already crossed multiple countries. They're often trying to get to other places in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that like Texas is saying, oh, we have all these migrants coming in and they're a real burden on us, they're moving out often within days anyway. In fact, if we had legal immigration that allowed them to come in, if they could come in legally, they wouldn't stay in Texas or Arizona for more than 48 hours. Just if we would open up our borders to legal immigration, we would open up the flow of people in all of the country. We've seen, a movement of more than 2 million people not born in the United States out of the United States during the pandemic. It's one of the great reasons that we have a worker shortage. We need 2 million immigrants to come back into the United States. Our economy demands it. And so these guys put these migrants on airplanes under false pretenses, saying that they signed a release saying they wanted to be sent to Massachusetts. Now, the sheriff in Texas has opened up an investigation into all of this because he thinks that these people were duped. He thinks that they were trafficked across states under false pretenses, that the DeSantis crowd was paying people to go through these migrant centers and get people to sign release forms under false pretenses. I mean, the troublemaking that these Republicans will do just to be cruel, just to say these people are bad and you should have to deal with these bad people. It is so unbelievably outrageous, and it doesn't seem to end. Just the sheer lawlessness of Donald Trump, the sheer we don't care about the laws of our elections, we don't care about how people are treated, has become such run-of-the-mill nonsense for Republicans that, I really don't want to just be someone that says all Republicans. But if you're a Republican or Republican voter, Republican candidate who doesn't support this stuff, then you speak up. Don't make the rest of us have to be so careful that we're like, well, I know there's some Republicans who don't. Make it impossible for us to make the charge that these are Republicans because you're saying something. Like, why we all have to say, hey, I know Republicans are doing bad things, but it's not all Republicans, is really not something we should have to make the point about. It should be plain and obvious to everyone that that's not the case. But here's the thing. You're tight-lipped about it. You don't say a word when you watch governors do this kind of thing, or you watch presidents lead on an insurrection. You just keep quiet, and then you act like, well, hey, don't put that on all of us. Well, look, you can come out any day you want and disavow the actions of your Republican colleagues. In fact, we have a love and politics pledge we'd like you to take, which part of the pledge is that you will speak up when people act in unloving ways. And if you don't have the moral fortitude to tell the truth to your Republican counterparts, then maybe you should go take your little light somewhere outside of public office, because it doesn't seem that it's something you should be participating in.
Yeah.
I'm ranting.
Doug, what do you,
that, my friend.
The Ron DeSantis's actions deserve a rant. It is so cruel. I mean, cruelty is, it's absolutely the right word to describe it. It's a political stunt using people in a vulnerable position, a vulnerable situation, you just picture in your mind, like, the Republican operatives who came up with this idea, like, cackling to themselves, laughing about how funny this is going to be. And I mean, these are the types of actions that totally backfire.
Yep.
Like, we there's just a number of things here that are going to really backfire on Republicans. We did in 2016, in 2020, we did a lot of research and a lot of polling on people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 who weren't going to vote for him again in 2020. And we were trying to figure out why. So we did some polling on that. We also asked we had a project called Hindsight 2020 where we collected people's stories and anecdotes about their experience and their change of heart. And there was a couple of things that we saw. One of the themes was the cruelty, the lack of kindness that existed in Donald Trump that pushed people away from him. That is now being emulated by people like Ron DeSantis and others.
Yeah, right.
The other thing we saw was the primary issue where voters were out of step with Republican leadership was on the issue of immigration. Yeah. And they were particularly disturbed by the images of kids in cages. There was something about seeing vulnerable people being exploited and being used as political tools, which absolutely backfired on Republicans.
Yep.
This stunt by Ron DeSantis, and Greg Abbott's been doing it in Texas as well, sending people to Washington, D.C., putting people on buses and sending them to the vice president's home. This kind of political stunt is absolutely the kind of thing that will backfire on people, and it will have. Now, listen, when it comes to particularly evangelical or Catholic voters who typically vote Republican, and they're lockstep with Republican leadership on taxes, national security, maybe abortion, maybe like they are locked. The one issue that religiously motivated voters are typically out of step with Republican leadership on is immigration. Because Republican leadership is, build the wall, keep everybody out. And there is a significant chunk. It's not the majority, and certainly the build the wall crowd exists. But we know from our research that there is a 15%, 20% of religious voters who are out of step with Republican leadership. They typically vote Republican, but they're out of step. And that issue that they are out of step on is immigration, because they're religious people. They take the Bible seriously. When the Bible says, welcome the stranger, be hospitable, they go, oh, this is something I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I don't want to be on the side of cruelty. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so I think there's two things. This political stunt by DeSantis, this is going to backfire. It's going to move voters away from Republicans. And the other one, I can't believe that he's done this, is Lindsey Graham's national abortion ban proposal. I mean, talk about like what are you thinking timing wise? Know what this indicates to me, Doug? You've heard me say on this podcast many times that enthusiasm is I think is the single most important thing when it comes to winning elections. How enthusiastic your supporters are. And what we have seen over the last several months is that the Republican base has become increasingly depressed, and not nearly as enthusiastic about voting. And we saw that. We thought that might happen. With the Dobbs decision. It's like in sports, you win the championship. It's really, really hard to win the next year. Like it's really hard to work for something, get it, and then like keep that same energy and momentum going. You've got that little bit of time where you think, yeah, we can conquer the world. And then the reality sets in of like, whew, we got to take a break. And that has happened with the Republican voters. They got this big victory by overturning Roe, and they're not energized now. Now, Democratic voters absolutely are, because of the Roe decision. So I think this national abortion ban is a ploy by Lindsey Graham to try to re-energize the pro-life voters, the anti-abortion voters. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's actually going to backfire, and I think it's going to continue to keep Democratic voters excited and engaged, because there's been the question of like, okay, we had this big vote in Kansas where, even in, I'm particularly connected to one district in Kansas that is, you know, the Republican state legislator in this district typically wins with over 60% of the vote year in and year out when he's on the ballot. Uh, in his district, the vote on the Kansas amendment and the vote no was, if you voted no, that was an indication that you didn't want to change the Kansas Constitution, and therefore you wanted to keep abortion rights in the state of Kansas. The no vote in this bright red district got 60% of the vote. Uh, there is, like, this has been a motivating factor for voters. Now the question is, oh, well, the Dobbs decision was a couple months ago. People, short attention spans.
Yeah,
And
that
here
was
comes Lindsey
summer.
Graham
Yep.
trotting out a national abortion ban after, the Republican mantra for so long has been states' rights. This is a state issue. This is a state issue. It's a state issue. And then here comes a senator saying, we're going to make a national decision on this. It exposes the hypocrisy. Now, all of this to say, Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot right now with their, with their AR-15s that they
supported AR-15s. Hey, I think that's well said. It's also a way to look at Lindsey Graham is just how could we make sure that the nation is more cruel on issues that matter to people? Like there's just a mean-spiritedness in it, and there's a violent nature to it. And there's a high level of distrust, like just all the things that you don't really want in a civic society. Here's the thing also, Rob, that sort of throws me a little bit. Republicans are always talking about how we don't want to down talk the history of America, right? We don't want to look at slavery without looking at the emancipation. We don't want to just have focusing on the dropping of a nuclear bomb on Japan twice. We also want to look at the liberation that we did. We don't want to talk about how not taking immigrants, including Jews, into the United States during the 1930s led to some of the atrocities in Germany. We want to talk about our liberation. Like, let's not talk about the bad stuff. But then in current life, all they want to do is talk about the bad stuff. All they do is down talk America. All they do is talk about American carnage and how things are terrible and we need to make the incongruency of these messages is just unbelievably bizarre to me. And so the need for us to be more cruel that Republicans want, that's not who we want to be as a country. Most people I know, they actually don't want that. And their politicians are rallying them up to be more cruel. And frankly, they're lying. These people are just saying things that are fundamentally not true. Immigration is one of those. There was a nice comment here from Angela. Angela says, I don't know. I'm trying to get her in the chat. What's my problem here? She says, I don't know all that happened with these migrants, but shouldn't sanctuary states need to be inviting them? Yeah, look, here's the thing. Migrants don't want to stay in whatever state happened to be closest to the border where they crossed. Okay, so hold that thought for a moment. There are no crossings of the U.S.-Mexico border, or almost none, that are not controlled by the Mexican drug and human trafficking cartels. Everyone involved in it will tell you that. We learned that when we were there. It's unbelievable. You might say to yourself, boy, I thought it was people from Mexico that were crossing, or I thought I was hearing people from Guatemala and from El Salvador that were crossing. Why now is it people from Venezuela and from Nicaragua? It's not just that people in Mexico and El Salvador and Guatemala said, oh, you know what? We don't want to go to the United States any longer. We're not going to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. And people from Venezuela were like, hey, I think it's time for us to go because our country's in crisis. Their country's been in crisis for a long time. Why are Venezuelans and Nicaraguans now at the border and crossing? Like last year, a year ago, it was Haitians. That's all controlled by the drug and human trafficking cartels. They determine what ports people are going to cross in, how they're going to get there. And if people from other countries try to cross, they're punished or killed. The U.S. policies about not allowing people to come into our country strengthens drug and human trafficking cartels. People on the border that we worked with, humanitarian groups that work with these folks all the time, will say to Border Patrol, Border Patrol and U.S. government policy is the best friend of the drug cartels. You're doing their work for them. So what we have going on here are people who are not being brought to the border and crossing the border just randomly on their own. It's a part of a sophisticated human trafficking element being done by these, what were formerly drug cartels, and now are making most of their money off of human trafficking. Guns from the United States are going into Mexico, and people from other countries are coming across from Mexico into the United States. That's the flow of what's going on, and is controlled by the drug cartels. So people who show up at these borders, they're not planning. And look, the migrants themselves, they're not criminals. They're being moved about and controlled by criminals and trying to get out from under the thumb of criminals. If we had an open immigration system that people could apply for and come in, and it met the number of people trying to get in the country, you'd put the drug cartels and human trafficking cartels out of business. Why do Republicans want to keep those people in business? I don't know, but you should ask every Republican, why do you want to continue to support policies that are so positive and beneficial for drug cartels and for human trafficking cartels? The second thing is, people do want to go to these other states. When states are sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, they're glad to have them. It would be better if when people came, there were families ready to greet them. There were refugee resettlement groups. There were migrant resettlement groups, asylum resettlement groups that were prepared for their coming. What Greg Abbott from Texas, the governor, and Ron DeSantis from Florida have done was not tell the other states or the organizations that work to help settle these people. They just fly them there or drive them there and drop them off. So why do they do that, you ask yourself? Why don't they say, hey, states that want to accept these migrants and help them get assimilated into your society, why don't you work out a deal and come and pick these people up? They don't do that. Instead, they resist it all the time. They demonize these people, and then they just drop them off. So what they're trying to say is, oh, these people in these sanctuary cities, they don't really want these migrants. Yes, they do. And there's whole systems set up to accommodate them in all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. Like all over this country, there's process for this. Republicans are short-circuiting it, and they're doing it because somehow they think it's to their political advantage. And this is the thing just across the board on all of these policies. You say to yourself, why don't you want this? And look, if I thought it was just about money, if you could tag money to everything, I don't know, the NRA or some big funder, it's not always just about the money. It's about political power that comes through showing that you're more cruel. And why voters continue to support people who are bullies and are cruel, it's something we really have to ask ourselves in this society. Because cruelty should not be a campaign slogan.
Yes. Yes. Now, Doug, we are at a point where the two leading Republican presidential candidates for 2024, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, are both under criminal investigation.
Yes. And that either could be because, the law enforcement is against them, which is curious for people that are pro-cop.
Yeah, law and order.
Or they've done things that look and sound like crimes. Yeah, and it's probably the latter. Maybe it's not just a conspiracy against you. Maybe you being all law and order and Friends of the Blue doesn't mean that the people who work in law enforcement are intentionally trying to target you, because it's not only the federal Justice Department, it's states, it's county sheriffs, it's people that are like, the things you're doing, we say in this society, they're not acceptable, so we call them a crime.
Right.
Just remember what crimes are. Crimes are actions that are determined by our society to be something outside of the norm that we don't want you to continue to commit these actions. That's what crimes are. Crimes are not just like violations of random, statutes that just sort of showed up and people are like, well, it's not like, stepping on a crack is really going to break my mother's back. Things are fine. No, these are laws that we put in place that you can't defraud people to put them on airplanes and fly them to other states for your own benefit. When you do that to someone, that's a crime, Ron DeSantis. Yeah. And we're going to look into this because it's starting to look an awful lot like a crime.
That's right. Because I think when I think of the word kidnapping, I think of deceiving someone to get them into a vehicle to take them somewhere they don't necessarily want to go, which I'm
You know who
pretty
else does that?
sure is
The
exactly.
drug cartels.
Yeah, seriously. Well, this is, I mean, and I feel like we're so often we're broken records because we feel so often we say this, that what Republicans do, the page out of their playbook is pure projection.
Yeah.
They like, think about the stuff that they complain about, the stuff that they rail against.
Yeah.
Human trafficking, how much have we heard Republicans talk about human trafficking over the last several years, which is great. Like, yes, we need to end modern day slavery and end human trafficking. But who's doing the human trafficking? We've got Matt Gaetz taking minors across state lines for being, he's accused of sexual impropriety, and now this week we learned that Matt Gaetz seeking a pardon from the president was not because of his role in the former president, not because of his role in the January 6th insurrection, but he was seeking a pardon for the
crimes that he
the
committed.
crimes that he's being investigated related to human trafficking. And we've got Ron DeSantis now, human trafficking. So, listen carefully to what Republicans say, and they are telling you the things they accuse Democrats of. They are telling you the very things that they are going to do, which is why, like, the election is stolen,
Yes.
that's because that's what they do. Like, they are accusing their enemies of the very thing that they do. If you listen to them, they will tell you.
Yeah. And look, you ran for Congress as a Republican. I have voted for many Republicans in my adult life. Never voted as a minor. Only in my adult life did I ever vote for anyone. I voted for a lot of Republicans. It shouldn't be this way.
Right. Should not.
I mean, I had lots of reasons why I voted for Republicans in the past and lots of reasons why I don't think I could ever bring myself again. What's going on with the Republican Party is causing a lot of people to ask what has happened to the Republican Party. And the answer to that is, we're just continued down a path that we have wanted to be on all along. And look, this is not just, I wish this was just classic old school partisan hackery. People just sports radio talking about how their team is better than the other team.
Yeah, my team is not better. I say as a heartbroken Cleveland Browns fan today.
That your heart can be broken by the performance of an athlete is just
listen. Yeah, it's not just an athlete. It is an entire team that consistently invents new ways to lose games. Doug, my team had a 13-point lead. With a minute and 22 seconds left.
Your team is so fortunate to always have a chance to play against winners. There's always a winner when there's a loser in sports. So your team is just super good at playing against winners. And what they do is they just are the beneficiaries of other people's winning. And that means that they lose. That's all it is.
Invent new ways to lose. So right before
they
the
help
onside
people be winners. They're like personal coaches. They're like gurus of winning. And they just help other people win. Think of the Cleveland Browns. Exactly. Is that the right name? Think of the Cleveland Browns as just people that are making others happy.
Oh my goodness. Not me. There's this great coloring book that is, it's Why is Daddy Sad on Sundays? Listen, two weeks in a row, the Cleveland Browns in the last 2 minutes of a game have let their opponent score a 60-yard touchdown. Right before the onside kick, the announcer on Sunday, the announcer says, since the onside kick rules have been changed, the conversion rate is only 14%. Only 14% of onside kicks are successful. 14%.
Donald Trump had an 8% chance of becoming president. I mean, these people are just
that 14% number has increased today because the Cleveland Browns gave one. So, anyways,
Well, good for the millionaires. I'm glad.
I'm sorry
Hey,
I derailed your.
a guy like Ben says a comment like this: you just ignore the rape, the murder, the drugs, illegal immigration brings to our border states, and you say the opposite, that the opposition is cruel, the ignorance of Doug and Rob annoy beyond reason. If illegal immigration, sorry about that, it fell away. If illegal immigration isn't optimal, then optimize it, but just don't open the floodgates. All right, couple things about this, Ben. Thanks for your comment. I've been to the border. I'm sure you have too. If you make a comment like this, and you've talked to the people who work there, and you've talked to the people in drug interdiction, you talk to the border patrol, and you realize no migrants crossing the border on foot are carrying drugs. Drug cartels don't trust individuals with backpacks with their drugs in the desert and the river. That's not how they come in. They come in on trucks. They come in on giant semi trucks and personal trucks.
Have you not watched Better Call Saul?
The United States only looks at 10% of the trucks coming in. If you're concerned about drugs and illegal things trafficked into the United States, which we should be, what you'd want to do is not have Border Patrol chasing individuals around the desert who've been out there for multiple days dying of thirst, because that's not stopping drugs. They will tell you that. Drugs are coming in on the trucks, and 10% of the trucks are checked. If you want to stop drugs coming in the United States, which there's a very good question whether we want to stop drugs coming in the country, because you know who uses drugs? People in the United States. The drug problem in Mexico is created by the demand in the United States. But if you wanted to stop them, you wouldn't spend all this money on individuals driving around the desert. You would put it all at ports of entry, and you would put it all at water ports. That's where you would do it. The reason that they're bringing drugs in the country is because they can make it happen through the ports of entry. Legal immigration that's open for everyone to apply to, because Ben, you might not know that we put a cap on the number of people who can come from every country. Why do people from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala have to come in the country without permission? Because we've said we don't have any more permission to give people from your countries. That's why we have a cap on the total number of migrants who can come in, and then separate caps on each country. We've created the very problem. It's never served the United States. It makes no sense. Now, Ben, here I would agree with you. Democrats need to get on this. We've been saying for years, you have to fix this problem, not just for the kids who came in as dreamers, 20 years ago, giving them a pathway to citizenship. Pass the guest worker program, create a guest worker program where workers can come and go from the United States, like you can come and go from any state within the United States, and make it more possible for people to have the natural flow of workers like we have the natural flow of products. That's the solution. This idea that the drugs are coming in by the migrants, and then what, people are running up into Ohio, they're running up into, Pennsylvania and sticking needles in the arms of people and turning them into addicts. You think that's how it's happening? You think that's what's making drug addicts in the United States? You don't think it's people being addicted to painkillers that are overprescribed, and then it moves on to heroin, and then it moves on to fentanyl? So, like, the idea that the migrant is the problem with our drugs, it's not how they come in, and it's not why people demand drugs. Ben, I'm sure it's a well-thought argument that you have. But please, just for any of us, assume that 2 million people trying to come into the United States are not coming to bring drugs. 2 million people in the United States might demand drugs, but they're not coming on the backs of these migrants. It wouldn't make sense for the drug dealers, and it wouldn't make sense for the migrants. They pay drug dealers and human traffickers to help them cross the border, because if they don't, they're going to be killed. The migrants are victims. They're not the villains.
Yeah. Yep. And Doug,
Sorry to get yelly there on that, but
talk about crime statistics.
It makes me crazy.
Talk about crime statistics, because you've debunked the drug thing. Now, like, what about this rapist charge that, these are criminals, these are bad elements that are coming into the country?
Look, we know a lot about people who've come into this country with permission and people who've come in without permission, because if you get arrested and you're found to not have documentation, they know that and it gets recorded. So we know how many people who are in the country illegally have committed crimes. The crime rate among people who come into the country overall is significantly lower than the crime rate of people who are born in this country. And people who come into the country without permission to be here is even lower than that. And you know what the thing is that's higher for people who come into the country and weren't born here and for people who come into the country without permission? You know what's higher? Small business starting. Entrepreneurship is higher among people who were not born in this country than people who were born in this country. So the things you say you want, less crime and more hard work and entrepreneurship, that happens more amongst people who are not born in this country and come here than people who are. So you can make all the arguments you want about why you don't want those folks, but please match them with the facts. It really helps. And look, when the facts are not on one side, feel free. And I know, you can throw up here's a story of a rapist. Do you know how many rapes there are in this country? You know how many sexual assaults there are in this country by people who are born in this country? So many more than people who came in any other way. So it's just simply not the case. Like one little statistic I put on a little TikTok video yesterday and our YouTube channel. More people born in Mexico live in Chicago than the entire state of Arizona. So this idea that our southern border states are going to be overwhelmed with people from they're not. There's just, I'm not trying to be dismissive here, Rob, seriously. There's not an argument that people use about immigration that actually matches the facts.
That's right.
And it's not just, soft-hearted faith, hope, and lovers like me that are saying this. Go talk to Border Patrol. Go look at national or at federal statistics.
Yep. Republican mayors of border towns that you have interviewed, Doug.
Yes. Look, give me an hour. Go onto our YouTube channel. Look at our We the People Ride immigration stuff. You'll see interviews with migrants, with people who work there, with people who are mayors of these towns, and Border Patrol. They will tell you. And people who run the inspections at the borders. This is not secret knowledge. If you believe that migrants are bringing in drugs and rapists and crime, you've simply been misinformed. I believe you've been lied to, meaning people who are telling you that know it's not true and are telling you anyway.
They know.
But even giving the benefit of the doubt, you've simply been misinformed. So
do your own research. As they say.
Do your own research. Don't just take what the media is giving you. If Fox News is telling you that, look it up yourself. Joe Rogan, that thing. Go right ahead. I would love for you to. And any of you, whether you think I'm a moron or not, want to come with us in 2023, we're going to go back down to the border again. We're going to be back. Come with us. Honestly. Anybody, come meet these people. Go so you can tell your family and friends what's actually going on there. It's not that complicated. And here's the other thing. It's not dangerous. It's really great.
Yeah. And so when you see Republican governors, Republican senators like Ted Cruz cosplaying, tough guy at the border, in their camo pants and their Cabela's shirt that they bought and, looking through the binoculars out there at night, cosplaying like they're big tough guys on the border. Ted Cruz, who, when his state is in crisis, flees off to Mexico with his family, that Ted Cruz, when he, headed to Cancun, those are photo ops. Those are designed events that are about projecting an image and creating a narrative. They are not like normal day-to-day, here's what's happening at the border kind of images. And, however, when you, bike across the border, bike along the border, do you know what you see? You see what's happening every day. You see the normal stuff because there's not Secret Service and film crews and news media and all of the hangers-on that are accompanying the senators and the governors, and the comms directors that are crafting what the tweet is going to be and staging what the photo is going to look like that, like there that
Yeah.
stuff that you see is not reality.
Yeah.
It's political theater.
Look, we rode along the river, the Rio Grande River in McAllen, as it splits the United States and Mexico from Reynosa to McAllen. The very place where, as you say, Ted Cruz and the governor from Iowa and Greg Abbott were out there surrounded by marshals and had flak jackets on going down the river to the exact place 7 to 8 days after they were there. Families having picnics on both sides of the river. Beautiful. There's a river boat that just takes people up and down, and the riverboat captain that's been on the river for 40 years said, it's not dangerous. If people were being shot at around here, if you had to wear a flak jacket, you think I'd be bringing tourists up and down the river? Like, I wouldn't be out. You should go watch the video and hear from these people. Look, is there threat and danger everywhere in the United States?
Sure.
Yeah, mostly caused by drugs and guns. To be honest, right? Drugs and guns cause it. Drug demand, proliferation of guns cause the problem. Now, we could stop drugs and guns if we want to, but we don't want to. So yeah, there's going to be some danger in these places, but less than anywhere else. Border towns have a lower crime rate and a higher level of safety than their counterparts deeper in the country. So say what you want about what's going on the border. Yeah. Please head down there. And look, people even who live close to the border, like, Phoenix is close to the border. People in San Antonio are close to, many people never even go. The thoughts about the border, this is the other thing we did, Rob, and they can watch this, people can watch these on our videos and whole podcast. We say to people, hey, what do you wish along the ride? We'd say to everybody we met, what do you wish people in the rest of the country knew about life on the border? To a person, mayors, people living on the street, people who are recently migrated and living there, people who have been there for generations, all said the same thing. I wish people knew that it's not dangerous like they're being told that it is. That this is a good place. People should consider coming here. Please come here. We would love it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Sure, we have our issues, but less than anywhere else. Come here. That's what they want. But, we have this story being told, and why we want to slander people who live on our borderlands is also something we really want to maybe ask ourselves about. But look, our country has struggled with migrants from its founding. We weren't sure who should be here. Had to have a whole argument about should the people from, Europe be coming to this land as migrants and taking it from the indigenous people. That didn't go well. From then on, it's just been a series of exclusion acts, one after the other. Yes. Whether it was the Chinese or the Japanese or the Germans or the Irish or people from Italy or people now from Mexico and from Central and South America. Like, look, the idea that like, hey, the only reason we're against immigration here is because, what's actually going on. Well, that would be great if that was the case. No, it's because we're habitually addicted to telling people they can't come to this country after your people came to this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage everybody to check out the new Ken Burns documentary series on PBS about America and the Holocaust, and particularly how the United States, which we love to, position ourselves as the hero of the story of the Second World War. There might be some nuance to that, and Ken Burns is telling that story really spectacularly.
Yeah. Mark says the same thing earlier on. He said, that's really something worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug, can we move away from these really important immigration issues?
I don't know if I can. I feel stuck
from
the
tremendously important to the absolutely absurd.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump sued to get a special master assigned. Special master. I mean, this is this.
Could we think the terminology on that one in light of slavery in this country?
I gotta say, this is a phrase that, every once in a while phrases enter the lexicon like social distancing, like special master is a
Stop
phrase
the
that
steal.
very yeah, very few of us have, probably ever used before the last month or so. So
Yeah.
Donald Trump went to uh, a judge that he appointed and seems to be tremendously unqualified to be a federal judge, and got her to rule that I'm just
Go
making a
ahead.
little
I
dig.
know.
I
I
know,
just
I know,
have
I
to roll
know.
my. Let's not
Just
throw the
I
judiciary.
know.
We have ways to solve this without
Yeah.
that.
Okay, I'll say it this
It's
way.
called the appeals process.
Donald Trump went to a judge who probably needs to be impeached and removed from the bench
Donald Trump
to
went to the judge in the jurisdiction where his crimes took place. But anyway, go ahead. He doesn't get to pick the judge he goes to. It's the judge that's over that.
How convenient that he got to
that's
pick the judge.
he doesn't.
That
That's how
is the judge that.
That's how judgeships work. Judges are
Yeah.
assigned to
So, anyways,
locations,
so
and crimes
a
that Donald
special
Trump
master
committed are in
was
those
appointed.
locations. Those are the judges.
A special master was appointed, and I don't presume to know all the ins and outs, but it seems that the special master is there to determine, you know, like you can't just bring this classified information out in court. Like so often in court cases, you've got discovery where information is traded back and forth between the defense and the prosecution. There's like everybody gets to look at all the same evidence, and it's just kind of all out on the table, and then the judge determines what's admissible and what's not. When you're dealing with national security issues, top secret and classified information, you can't just put it all out there in discovery. So you need a special master to examine this. And so the special master, those that were considered to be the special master, all had to have security clearance to be able, previously have security clearance to be able to view this information. A special master has been appointed. You think Trump wants this because this is going to delay everything, right? This is going to make everything go slower. It's going to be a process, and his tactics so often is delay, and just keep punting the ball down the field, and trying to run out the clock on all of this stuff, trying to get past the midterms in hopes that Republicans win the election, and he can shut everything down and change the conversation, which isn't going to happen, but that's the strategy.
Right.
Apparently, so the special master has requested information from the Trump defense team about what stuff was declassified, when it was declassified. Has put particular dates, I think the date of October 7th on the time frame of when they have to reply, and when everything, like, not delaying at all, getting right to work. And apparently now the Trump team is resisting cooperating with the special master.
Yeah, they're saying, hey, we're not going to tell you which documents were declassified, or maybe weren't declassified, or which is what's on declassification.
This is peak Trump, isn't it? This is this is as Trump as it gets.
This is
demanding that you get a special master and then refusing to cooperate with the special master.
And it was even the special master, agreed by the Justice Department, but the one that was suggested by Trump as apparently a fairly straight shooter. And look, the reason that they're saying in court documents, we're not going to tell you about documents that were declassified, most of the pundits who pay attention to this are suggesting that's because lawyers are unwilling to lie in federal court.
Yep.
They're not going to say this document was declassified if it wasn't declassified. Donald Trump can say I declassified it. And we've all learned a lot about this declassification, if you've been paying attention to all this, that yes, a president can initiate a declassification without anybody else wanting it to be declassified, but it doesn't make the thing instantly declassified. There's still a process that it goes through. It's just the president can say, start that process right now. For some, that process is 5 minutes. For other things, that process can take days and weeks.
Yes.
But other people are involved once the president says declassify it.
Yeah.
He just
Picture
initiates
in your
nobody else was involved. These things were not. It doesn't even
yes.
matter if they're declassified because he still had documents that didn't belong to him. It's just to the
Yeah,
rest of us, we're like, this guy is a threat to democracy. Because
that's
look,
right.
in my view, Rob, if he took documents that had significant national security implications and just randomly declassified those, that's as bad as keeping them and spreading them if they're not declassified, because normally things are only declassified once they're no longer a threat. If
Right.
they are a threat and you declassify them, it would be like saying, hey, having a bottle of rat poison out around your house when there's a toddler over is a real problem. I'm just going to take the lid off of this and then say, well, it's not a problem if you take the lid off of it. No,
Yeah.
it's even more of a problem if you take the lid off
Yeah.
of it. If you
Yep.
declassified documents that still were dangerous to national security, you took the classification lid off and then say, well,
Yeah.
things that have the lid off can't be dangerous. It's the opposite of
Mhm.
true.
Yeah.
Again,
Two things.
just the opposite of truth with these people is
Yes.
stunning. It's not even a lie. It goes well beyond a lie. It gets into this is just opposite of anything that matches reality. It's
Yeah.
Freaky Friday every freaking day with these people.
Yes. Yep. Two things. So when you think about Donald Trump declassifying, have in your mind the scene from The Office where Michael Scott is in deep financial problems. He's having a conversation with Oscar, one of the guys from the accounting department at the office at Dunder Mifflin, and Oscar says to him, "Listen, Michael, what you need to do is you need to declare bankruptcy. That's your best option." And Michael Scott, okay. And he walks out of his office and he yells into the room with all of his subordinates. He yells bankruptcy because he's declaring
He's declaring
bankruptcy.
bankruptcy.
Like that's
That's
Donald
awesome.
Trump with this
Yeah,
declassification thing.
yeah,
Like that's not how any
yeah.
of this works. So that's
That's
number
not
one.
how it
Number
goes.
two, here's a name from a blast from the past. Scooter Libby.
Oh, I remember Scooter Libby. He was the guy that worked for Vice President Dick Cheney, father of Trump supporting voter Liz Cheney.
Yes. Scooter Libby did time in jail because he was involved in the revelation of the name of Valerie Plame, who um, was a CIA agent, undercover
Yeah,
operative, and and he did time in jail because revealing who she was put her
yep.
in jeopardy and national security in jeopardy. Donald Trump's actions with these classified documents is you know, is that multiplied by how many agents have been, I'm just speculating here, but how many agents have been put in jeopardy like Valerie Plame was, by the actions of Donald Trump.
Well, this very well could come out fairly soon because the
Yeah.
Justice Department knows the answers to many of these questions. Like
Yes.
sometimes the way this is talked about, it makes it sound like, hey, the Justice Department had to go down and then figure out which documents he had, and now they're doing an investigation to see what the impact of this was. And like all of us are waiting for the determination of that. The
Yeah.
Justice Department is fully aware. They knew many of the documents that were missing because they were, to borrow a phrase, they were checked out from the secret document library and they're not
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah.
file folders. So
Yeah.
they
They're
knew many
overdue.
of them and they know what's in them. They've already looked at them. They likely knew the content of them before they asked for them back. All of this stuff is known. What the Justice Department is doing is lining up all of the evidence in such a way that they're going to have to compare what Donald Trump did to other people who have done similar things so that the response to Donald Trump's behavior is equal to the response that's been levied to other people's behavior. This is the big thing that Merrick Garland is trying to do. And Merrick Garland gave this big speech in New York the other day where he makes a big point about this kind of fairness. And one of the things that judges do and that prosecutors do is they contrast a case in front of them with previous cases. This is part of the reason why case law becomes so important. So part of what they're doing is they're having to determine, what category do we put this in? Is it Scooter Libby, who went to prison? Is it more like David Petraeus, former general, who leaked information to the person he was having a sexual affair with so she could write a better book? Is it more like that, who didn't go to jail, but just had, a limitation on what he could ever do in federal government again? Is it closer to that? Is it more like someone who's just lost their job because of this? Is it more like a spy that was charged with treason? Like, they're trying to find, where does this fit? Because we have a long history of people, treating documents badly, but never a president. And here's the thing that's going to be interesting about this. You don't have a category for when the president didn't respond to subpoenas and didn't respond to formal requests to take back the stuff he took from the White House that didn't belong to him. Like the klepto president, we don't have a category for how have we charged other klepto presidents that took stuff that didn't belong to them. So once again, this guy, twice impeached, loser re-election bid guy, is just in a category by himself that we now have to figure out, what do we do with this guy? And again, it's just exhausting that the country has to say, what do we do with Donald Trump? I mean, honestly, what do we do about this guy?
Yeah.
It's just bananas.
Yes.
That we're having to figure out how the country responds to the bad behavior of Donald J. Trump.
Yes. And Donald Trump is, I mean, if you saw footage from his events over the weekend, it seems to be moving more and more in like full on QAnon conspiracy theory. Yeah. I mean, it is scary stuff from the, his retruths on Truth Social, consistently now being QAnon conspiracy theories, to his, use of music at the at his event, where his rally, where the music that he used is the music from a QAnon video about the storm coming. That kind of stuff is not on accident. They're like, and now it's just
moronic.
That coupled with, I mean, we've got examples from Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Doug Mastriano of just this week of like new doubling down on the Christian nationalism. Doug, like, this stuff is important, and this election, we continue to, like, we have longed for a complete and total repudiation of Trump and Trumpism and this whole thing. And man, November 8th, we've got a chance. We've got a chance.
It just has to happen again. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get this virus out of the system. It's like all of these elections, it's easy to say to yourself, I thought we dealt with this in January of 2020 or in November of 2020. I thought we dealt with this in January of 2021 when Trump was out. I thought we were done with this. Think of it like having to be on a course of antibiotics. Like, democracy has to get rid of this infection. It's going to take a course of elections for us to make the body politic healthy again. And you can't stop halfway through your protocols on getting rid of this this infection. That's how we see this. So you got to do it again.
And that's why we're
and honest to Pete, if you think the most important thing about the presidency is the price of your gas, please reconsider the role of the president as the executive of the executive branch and the role of Congress. They don't set gas prices.
It's true.
I mean,
This is Doug.
honestly,
I mean, I have.
for $2 a gallon, you're willing to sell democracy. I mean, honestly, people, of course not. Nobody is. Don't let people tell you, yeah, but inflation and gas is really super high now. In 2008, I drove around the country. You know how much gas was? $5 a gallon in 2008. Gas prices go up and down. It's not because of who was the president. Like, my gosh. I mean, it's like kids that think every bad thing that ever happened to them was because of their parents. Like, could we not have like dysfunctional family narratives about our presidency?
It's true.
Hey,
But
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
need to
I've
go load up a trailer and drive to Pittsburgh. What are you gonna do the rest of the day?
well, I got to go buy a couple of birthday presents.
A birthday
I
party
got
for an
a
8-year-old. That's
well, the birthday party was last night because there's a soccer game tonight. So
you didn't have a present at the birthday party? Okay, we're not
her
going to get into
friends,
this because now we're back
her
into it. You
friends,
know, an 8-year-old.
her friends brought
problems from
brought
family.
presents to her at the birthday. We had a birthday party at the trampoline park, and it was again a number of these scenarios that I have been in. Whether it was the hoedown dance party at the elementary school on Friday, or the trampoline park birthday party. A number of these scenarios that I walk into and I look around and I go, oh, this is when I get COVID. Because I'm still COVID free. And I know you've had it twice
the
now,
pandemic
right?
is
Doug?
over, my
You
friend.
know,
The
I
pandemic is over.
the president said so. But I look around. I said, so we had birthday party last night with her friends, and they all had presents. Today's actually her birthday. Couldn't have the birthday party tonight because she's got a soccer game, so she's getting her presents from us today. But that's assuming, of course, that I get some presents. So here's hoping there's a Pippi Longstocking book at Barnes and Noble.
Hey, pick up a gift card. They just always go over well, especially.
Oh yeah, nothing an 8-year-old loves better than opening up a gift card.
Why don't you write a check for $10 and put it in an envelope and mail it to her?
Like, fantastic, Doug. This week we will be on the road. We are kicking it back off. We are going to be doing events. Folks should go over to votecommongood.com and if they're in Pittsburgh, sign up to come and be with us.
If you're in West
we'll be
Michigan,
done before the game.
If you're in Arkansas, you can join us. If you're in Dallas, Texas, you can join us. That's just in the next 10 days.
We're going to be all over. We're going to be, we're going to be Kansas. We're going to be in Michigan. We're going to be online.
Wherever
Ohio,
you're watching
Pittsburgh.
this, we're going to be back online with Electionary. So a little biblical reflections for this election for those who want to see their faith, hope, and love come alive on Election Day. All right. Is that good? All right.
That's good.
See you later. Hey, thanks everybody for all your deep-hearted participation in this. We really appreciate it. Catch you on the flip side. Bye.